Well, hey friend, Andrew here. Today we're going to talk about headphone monitoring, so let's roll the intro. Well, welcome into the control room of my home studio. Today we're going to talk about headphone monitoring, as I said. But before we do, I have a free gift for you just for watching this video today. So if you head over to www.andrewpeachmusic.com/studio-outfitting-guide, you can pick up a copy of my 8-step studio outfitting guide, which is the process that I've used to outfit the studio you see behind me. So I determine my goals, my needs and wants, obtain pricing, all those different steps to get what you see behind me today. So hopefully that will be helpful to you. So if you've been following along my video series, you'll know that I recently finished construction on the studio that you see behind me here. So it's quite the transformation. So originally when we walked in the house, it looked like this. And then through construction, it looked like this. And now today, it looks like this. Similarly, in the control room, which we're in right now, it originally looked like this. And then like this. And finally like this, which is the way you see it right now in this video. So I compiled all the construction information that I use. I took a bunch of pictures and videos as I was doing the construction, and I've packaged it all into an online course I'm calling Constructing a Home Recording Studio. So if you head over to www.andrewpeachmusic.com/constructing a studio, you can take a look for yourself and you can see all the details and material choices and why I chose those materials. All that information is packaged into that one course. I really wish that was something that I had when I built my first studio, but through building 2 studios now, I think I got a pretty good handle on what I need to build a home recording studio. So I think that'll be helpful to you. All right, with that being said, let's dive into some headphone monitoring. Okay, so what are we going to talk about in regards to headphone monitoring? Well, first we're going to talk about why do we need headphone monitoring. So it's very important to have a separate monitoring system aside from your studio monitors. Well, why is that? So if you're tracking vocals or instrument with microphones in the same room as your studio monitors, the microphones are going to pick up the playback from your studio monitors, and that's obviously not what we want. So therefore, you need to have a way to monitor with headphones. Now, with all that being said, there are instances where I track while monitoring through my studio monitors, right? So if I'm playing bass guitar, electric guitar, keys, I sometimes do that in my control room in front of my studio monitors and my main setup. But the key thing is that there's no microphones, right? If there are microphones, then I track in my tracking room with headphones while listening. You know, if somebody's in my control room listening through the studio monitors, it doesn't get picked up. So that's the important thing there, is having a separate monitoring system aside from your studio monitors when you're using microphones. So okay, we've established that we need some sort of monitoring system through headphones. So what type of headphones are best is probably your first question. So almost any type of headphones will do. You can use consumer headphones. You can use over-the-ear headphones. I use the Presonus HD7. I have 4 sets of those here. And then you can use molded in-ear monitors like I have here, the Shure SE425s. So just a pro tip, when you're recording vocals and acoustic instruments, you want to reduce the amount of sound leakage coming through your headphones. So sensitive microphones will pick up this leakage, right? So sometimes when I'm using the Presonus over-the-ear headphones, for example, there are some leakage around those headphones, and the sensitive microphone, like my condenser microphone, will pick up those sounds, right? So sometimes I end up using my in-ears there on the right, or consumer headphones on the left, and I even have a set of earmuffs that I put on over the in-ear headphones just to make sure that there's no bleed over when I'm using a very sensitive vocal mic or condenser mic, is that type thing. So what do you do with those headphones? Can you just plug them into your computer headphone jack? Well, that's certainly a solution, but a better option is the headphone port on your audio interface or mixer. As you can see there in the picture, that's my headphone port on my Studio Live 32. So this is usually a dedicated port with a built-in headphone amp and volume knob. And as you know, most headphones are not powered, so they require an external headphone amplifier, right? So your computer has one built in, your phone has one built in, so that drives your headphones. So we're going to talk about external headphone amplifiers shortly, but what we're talking about here is the ones that are built into your device, so that is an option. But what if you want to track multiple instruments or vocals at once, right? You only got one headphone jack, so how does that work? So in order to do that, you'll need multiple outputs on your audio interface or mixer. So these outputs could be labeled as line out, mix out, aux out, sub out, etc. There's many different names that manufacturers use to label those types of outputs. These outputs are usually balanced, right, which is also known as stereo, but they may not be, right? So usually your headphones, you have a balanced signal going in, left and right, but you need to check and see if the outputs on your device are balanced, or stereo as it's also known. And multiple outputs mean that each person can have their own separate mix, right? So if you have, 4 outputs on your audio interface or your mixer or whatever, you can have 4 different mixes coming out of that board, and everybody can have their own mix, right? So they can have more drums if they're the drummer, they can have more vocal if they're the vocalist, or less of the electric guitar if you're playing keys. Everybody has a preference on what they like to hear. So that's awesome as well. Makes people perform better generally when they hear what they want to be able to hear. But for every output that you want to use for headphone monitoring, you're going to need to run each into a headphone amplifier. So as we talked earlier, your computer, your phone, headphone output on your mixer interface has a built-in headphone amplifier. Well, if you want to use the outputs on your interface or mixer for headphone monitoring, you're going to need to run it into a headphone amplifier because the signal is not hot enough, or there's not enough volume there to drive your headphones. So what's a headphone amplifier? Well, a headphone amplifier takes an output signal from your interface or mixer and amplifies it enough to drive your headphones. So there's all different kinds of types of these, right? I've just shown some examples here, so you can get like a belt pack single channel, right? The Personas HP2. You can get a 4-channel desktop model, the Personas HP4. You can get the 6-channel rack mount, Personas HP60, which I own. And then you can go as high as 8 channels, right? Rack mount Mackie HM800. So there's a bunch of different options, right? Like I said, all the way down from belt pack if you need one. If you got 4 outputs, 4-channel works. And there's all kinds of different manufacturers that you can use for this. So let's put all this together and we'll take a look at my setup. So you can see here is my board, Studio Live 32. So on that board, I have 16 mix options, right? And you can see there they're labeled aux, sub, matrix, right? So I can program internally which mix type it is. So my first 7 mixes there are yellow. I've used those as aux mixes. And we'll explain where they go on the right there. So you can see mix 1 through 7 have XLRs coming out of them. So each of those 7 mixes are totally independent of each other. They all sound different depending on what instrument I'm playing. And then we go over to my headphone amp. You can see I got a power strip first, and then the headphone amp, and then the Studio Live 24R. Well, the headphone amp in the middle there has 6 outputs, right? And you can see I've got them color-coded and numbered, which I'm going to talk about shortly. So I've also got a picture there of the back panel. So if I go back one slide, the first 6 mixes, 1 through 6, coming out of my Studio Live as XLRs, go into the back of the HP60, 1 through 6, as 1/4-inch balanced inputs into stereo extension in. That's the way I've got it wired up. So my cables are XLR females to 1/4-inch TRS or balanced males, and they plug into the stereo extension in of channels 1 through 6. Then the same thing, 1/4-inch balanced, TRS come out of the front of the HP60, which you can see there in the top picture, and they all go to my individual monitor connections. You can see here, so mix channel 1 is on my drums. Mix channel 2 is bass. Mix channel 3 is keys. Mix channel 4 is acoustic. Mix channel 5 is electric. And mix channel 6 is the vocalist. So if I jump back, you can see in the top picture 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 coming straight out, and they go to these in the tracking room. Okay, so I'm using extension cables. You can see there the Planet Wave as just a 1/4 inch balanced extension cable. I think these are 20 feet long if I remember correctly. And then I use adapters then to adapt down to 1/8 for the headphones. If I go back, there's 7 mixes coming out of the back of my mixer. So I've got a separate mix channel 7 that I hook up to my wireless in-ears pack. So I use that for quick recording when I'm just trying to get a project finished rather than just unplugging and plugging into separate mixes for each instrument. I just throw the wireless pack on and I just go from instrument to instrument and just record whatever I need to, hearing the same mix. As I said, I use the headphone extension cable, so you can see there on the left, I've got the extension cable plugged into an XLR by 1/4 inch adapter, which is connected to one of the returns on my snake. If I go back to the front, so that's number 1. So number 1 comes out, hooks up to my snake, and then comes out of channel A on my snake, and that goes to my drums. There on the right, it's the same idea except I don't run it through the snake. So the cable comes from the front of the headphone amp, goes into the adapter into the headphone extension, which then goes to mix channel 4 on acoustic. That's the way that one goes. So I've got each color coded and I've got each labeled. So the number corresponds to the channel on my headphone amp and the mix number, and the color just matches what instrument color coding I'm using. So yellow is for drums, green is for guitars, pink is for keys, orange is for lead, and that's basically it. So I know by looking at the color what instrument it's for, and I know what looking at the number what input or output it matches. That's just a little pro tip there that I've developed over time. And then we go back to the front of the unit a little closer up. So there's all kinds of knobs on the front of this unit. You got volume knobs, you got pan knobs, you got mute switches, mono switches. If you have any questions on how this operates specifically, just put them in the comments below and I'll be sure to answer them. So that was a brief overview of headphone monitoring. So let's go back to the control room. So hopefully that information was helpful to you. If you haven't already, please subscribe to the channel below. We got lots of exciting content and features coming up in the near future. Also in the description below, there's a link to my home studio tour, 2021 edition, as well as a link to the free guide I mentioned earlier and my online course. Well, that's all for today. Have a good week and we'll see you in the next one.